Hey guys, it's Paul. I wanted to make this video for those of you who might be playtesting Build a Cure. This is going to be a quick one that will kind of get you started, set up, so that way you don't have to watch 7 other videos just to get a handle on the whole game. This will at least get you started, and then as you have questions, you can either reference the videos or you can reference the rule book. So anyway, you should receive the Build a Cure box. As you notice on the bottom, there is a QR link that you can follow that will take you to the playtesting page, which there will be rules, there'll be a link to the how-to videos, there will also be a packing list for all of the items in here, as well as a form to fill out if you're going to be giving it to somebody or if you need to find the next place that it needs to be shipped. If you're going to give to somebody, I just need their name and their email address to get in contact with them. If you're going to be sending it out to somebody and you don't know who that is, I'll be providing you with a shipping label that you can put on the box and ship it out. So anyway, let's go ahead and open it up and get started. Okay, so when you get the box, the first thing you want to do is obviously open it up. There will be an insert in the top that will kind of get you started, basically give you the link for the website and also the hashtag to use for both Twitter and on Instagram. Up on the top you'll have all of the chips, and each person will get 3, so there'll be 3 of each color depending on how many players you have. And then both sets of cards. And what you want to do first is separate out the disease cards from the resource cards, and you'll know that by the back of the card. So the resource cards will have the elements, and the disease cards will have the kind of disease contagion symbol on there. Next, you'll want to look through, and hopefully they're already separated out, but if they are not, you will find the element count cards. Go ahead and set those aside. They either have turn guide, element count, or disease written on it. These will be the quick cheat sheet cards that you can use to reference how many elements there are, or how many diseases slash how many elements are needed to solve that disease. So each person should get at least one of these, or you can share. Next, there will be 10 of the draw cards. And as you notice, they have the backs of the resource card, but they have the disease symbol on it. And essentially this will tell you when you're going to draw from the disease pile. And so you want those separated out. Next, you can go ahead and shuffle up all of the remaining resource cards and get them fairly well shuffled together, as in every other game. So next you'll want to split this deck up into about 3 equal parts. And you'll take, all 10 of these cards, you'll put 3 of them in one, you'll put 4 in the middle one, and then 3 in the last one. So you can go ahead and shuffle those up. Obviously you should shuffle a little bit better than this, but this kind of gives you a good idea of what's going on. Okay, next you'll want to put the one that has 4 in the middle between the 2 that have 3. Okay, so you have your resource deck all ready to go. Next, you'll want to see who gets the first disease. So we'll go ahead and say that there's a green player, there is a blue player, a red player, and I'll be purple, sure. So we'll start, since I'm the dealer, you want to start left of dealer and deal out the disease cards. Now we're looking to get a disease first. So in this case, the blue player is going to have the first disease. Anything that's not a disease, you can go ahead and shuffle it back in. Now all the disease cards you can tell pretty easily, because they will have these white or gray bars at the bottom that tell you what the compound is to cure that. The other cards that are in here are going to be symptom cards, or they cause certain actions to happen. Like Catastrophe will move 5 of the resource cards to be discarded. So you go ahead and shuffle these back up, and that deck is done, at least for the dealing. Next, you'll want to take the resource cards and deal out 5 per person. Okay, and then you can go and return these back. So then everybody flips over their cards, and since this is a cooperative game, you're going to work together to solve the cures that are out on the table. So we'll go ahead and flip all these up so you can get a good idea of what we're looking at here. Okay, so at this point, you would start left of dealer to see if anybody has a draw disease card, which they're not in this set. But for an example, we will say that this person had a draw disease. So we'd start left of dealer, the green does not, the blue does. So they will turn this in for a disease card. Ooh, dizziness. And if you pull a symptom card, you'll want to do that immediately before the next person returns any draw cards. So for this one, it is discard 1 element card from your hand and pick up from the disease pile once. So since they had carbon 4, that will go in the element discard pile, and they will pick up another one from the disease pile. Now this one, it says if there's any unbound elements on the table, then they'll be discarded, but in that case there's nothing, so it is void. When you are discarding, there will be a disease deck discard pile, there will be a resource discard pile, and an element discard pile. So the easy way to tell the difference is if it's an element, it will have the bar on the side with a color. So all of those will go in one, and all of the resources like fission, bonding will go in the resource discard pile. Now the reason for this is there will be 2 different resource recycle and resource element recycle element cards that will be able to pull cards from that certain deck. Now one of the tricky things is when you play a recycle element card, we'll say I'm picking up the carbon, then you can use a recycle resource to then pick up that recycle element card instead. But that is using 1 turn, so you have to keep that in mind with the strategy of it all. So anyway, now that we have taken care of the draw disease cards for the blue player, we can go ahead and start. So the same as before, it would start left of dealer, and at this point you would follow the turn guide. So collect any markers. Now green still has all of his markers, so they would pick up 2 cards. In this case it's carbon 15 and hydrogen 20. Next they can either do 3 actions. They can place an element card on a disease, they can use a bonding card, they can give a card to another player's hand, or they can skip and discard. And the last thing that they have to do is discard down to card limit. And that's important because if the green player were to give me, the purple, another card, then at the end of the green's turn, I would have to discard down to my card limit of 5 as well. So that way it plays into the strategy of who you're going to give your cards to and whatnot. So in this case, we will say that we're going to add a hydrogen 2 to anthrax. So when you play an element on the table, you'll want to put a green token or a token on it unless it's bonded. So for this case, we can't bond it to anything because 15 is higher than 9 and 20 is higher than 11. So there's really nothing much that this player can do, so we will pass on a carbon 15 to the blue player. And that leaves everybody with less than 5 cards. So next we will go to the blue player's turn, and their disease has a negative effect of they have to draw 1 less card per turn. So they get to draw 1 card, and they get a recycle resource. And we will go ahead and just say pass for now. There's really nothing that this person can do at this moment. Next, it will go to the red player's turn. They will draw 2 cards, and they got a carbon 2 and a carbon 5. So they get 3 actions. For 2 actions, we'll go ahead and lay down the carbon 5 and the 2, and we'll put tokens on there. Next, we're going to use a bond card. Now, there are 3 different types of bonds here. There's a simple covalent bond, there's a polar covalent bond, and there's a complex bond. Now, the big thing that these are going to do is bring elements together. Now, each of these cards are by themselves unstable, so that's why we put the tokens on them, because at the beginning of each turn, the person has to collect any markers that are currently out on the table. So if no one had bonded this and it's the green player's turn again, then they would collect the token and hydrogen 2 would be discarded. So that's why it's very important to make sure that you can bond something together before the beginning of your next turn. So for the simple covalent bond, you can combine 2 elements together. Now we could combine the carbon 2 and the hydrogen 2, or we could combine the carbon 5 and the carbon 2. There's really no specific way that you have to do it. You just have to limit it to 2 single cards. Now next, you have the polar covalent bond, which lets you combine any 2 elements or compounds together. So we'll go ahead and say we use the simple covalent bond, and that will be discarded. And we combined the carbon 2 and the hydrogen 2. Now since we bonded it, the tokens go back to their original owner, and the cards get moved over to the other side, and they show that they are now a compound. And carbon is still not bound into it, so it has the token remaining. Now because we can combine any 2 elements or compounds, we can now bond together this carbon to the rest of the compound, and that will bring it together, and now it will be safe. The last card here is the complex covalent bond, and for this one you can bond any number of elements or compounds. So in the same situation, if we had all of these still unbonded, then you can use the complex, and that will bring all of it together. And it will be bonded to the disease. So again, you're trying to complete this compound at the very bottom. So right now we have 7 of the 9 carbons. We have 2 of the 11 hydrogens, but we still need 2 nitrogen, 4 oxygen, 1 sulfur. Now once you get all of that together, then you will solve the disease, and all of the element cards will be placed in the element discard pile, and the disease will go in the disease discard pile. That's pretty much it, a general overview. The big thing is just to make sure that you follow the turn guide of collecting all of the markers that are out, picking up 2 cards, playing up to 3 actions, and then discarding down to the card limit that you have. Depending on how many players, for 4 players, there's a card limit of 5. So that kind of sums it up. If you guys have any questions, there's probably another video that will cover that. If not, you can always send me a message, and I should be able to respond back pretty quickly. But anyway, thanks guys for watching, and hopefully you enjoy playing the game. Thanks.